I'm going to just bring everybody's attention to the front of the classroom. Hello, everybody. Thank you for taking your seats so organised. And I believe that some wine glasses and some snacks. Good. If you're anything like me, you like having a little munch while you listen. I'm Tim Hall. I'm going to be emceeing tonight. Before I carry on, it's always nice to know who the person in front of you is. So I'll give you 3 quick bullet points. I am Tim Hall. I was born and brought up north of Auckland, okay, just specifically before it became a super city. So I was born outside of Auckland originally, and I know that matters because we're in Christchurch. That's fine. I have just recently taken the plunge myself. I have quit my 8.5-year career at Burger Fuel head office, and I'm now in startup land. So I've taken the plunge, and I'm potentially, like some of you, an owner of a business with big aspirations, and I'm married to Kate. So that would be my 3rd bullet point. I'm going to introduce these lovely humans. So actually, before I introduce them, I've got 2 quick things to cover. We couldn't be here without our sponsors. We just can't do it without the sponsors. So Inspire, who Brianne is going to cover off a little bit more shortly, just a little bit, maybe, if she has to, and Christchurch NZ. So not being from Christchurch, I didn't really know what Christchurch NZ was or is or did. So I had to ask them some questions, and I've got a little blurb here. It's important to get the details right. So Christchurch NZ, they are the city's economic development agency. This is good. They are leading our cities, your cities, economic development ambitions towards a regenerative economy. So in other words, they're focusing on the important bits to make it all sustainable in the big picture. So that's very good. And they're very important. And some of them are here today as well. So thank you very much, guys. Now, over here, Brianne West in the red. I've only met her for the first time today. But I've heard her voice multiple times on Zoom. It's actually really lovely hearing you, and it's nice finally being able to put a face to who you are. Because Brianne, I've always just known as the Ethique founder, a New Zealand business titan with all fingers in different pies. Really, a go-getter. But she's also, Kate, my wife's mentor. And so I hear her voice pop up on Zoom calls from time to time. And so even though I've not met her, I've had a lot of appreciation and respect for you. So it's lovely to be front row seat to tonight. The other person, the ginger, is my wife. Ethically Kate, some of you may know her as. She is probably the hardest working person I actually know. You know how people say, oh, the hardest working person in the room? The person that I actually know in my sphere of people, she works the hardest. She has demonstrated to me what it is to wake up early, to stay up late, to hustle, to put your priorities in place and to push through. And it's inspirational for me. And she's one of the reasons I felt so confident to finally take the leap myself and start my own thing. So thank you, Kate, for doing that. And it's going to be really cool to ask you some questions and put you on the hot spot today in front of a lovely crowd. So that was my opportunity to introduce you two. But can now you both introduce yourselves in a slightly more contextualized way? So there's 2 microphones behind you. So let's do it in order of how I introduced you. Brianne, please. Yeah, I did. Please tell us all just a little bit more about who you are, why you're here, some of the passions, some of your origin stories, and you've got about 6+ minutes.
Okay, probably not going to talk that long. My origin story, I'd like to think that I'm a villain, but it's not that interesting. Okay, my name's Brianne. Hands up if you've heard of Ethique. Yes, we're a pretty good marketing team. I am no longer at all involved with the company. I stepped down last year, but I have since started a new company that is not actually launched yet, which some of you are drinking. They're the things in the drink dispensary things at the moment. And that's called Incrediballs. And we are trying to do what we did with Ethique, which to rid the world of plastic bottles. We're doing it in the drinks industry because, of course, Coca-Cola is the world's greatest plastic polluter, closely followed by Pepsi. And I consider that an issue. Innsbury is the sponsor, one of the sponsors alongside this evening. So when we were pondering what it is we were going to do after we'd stepped down from Ethique, because we had a majority sale to an American private equity company in 2020, who were going to go and take Ethique onto bigger and better things. We got a lot of requests from people as to how we could help them grow their businesses, grow their product businesses, and become more sustainable, because product businesses by definition are not overly well supported in Aotearoa. So we formed Innsbury, which is a investment / coaching / mentoring company, and it works exclusively with ethical product companies. It is relatively new because we're doing it very informally, but it's just a really lovely way to sort of give back, because we aren't financially sustainable itself yet. It's just a really lovely way to give back to other businesses who are trying to do what we did, which a lot of people hold Ethique up as a bit of an unusual case, because people think that ethical business doesn't work. I'd like to think that we've proved that it does, and that's what we're going to talk about a little bit today. Yeah. Was that 6 minutes?
That was under 6 minutes and really good. There you go. There's more time for Q&A later.
Lovely to be sitting alongside you, Brianne. Kia ora, tēnā koutou katoa. No whangaparawa aho, ko Matthew Gumbrow tōku papa, ko Nikki Gumbrow tōku mama, ko Tim Hall tōku hōtana, ko Kate Hall aho. It is wonderful to be with you tonight. I come from Whangaparawa, which, as Tim mentioned, is not part of Auckland. When people say, where are you from? I say, just in a little town north of Auckland, because it is far away, where all the lovely beaches are and the Aucklanders are not. They are still
There's a lot of shade, but
I know,
sometimes Auckland is a lovely
I just
people.
don't want people to picture a big city when they picture where I'm from.
We have lots of beaches where we're from.
Totally. Yeah, a lot of you know me as Ethically Kate, and may know me as that person who, dances and overshares their life online, often with this bearded chap. But I do a lot of different things that potentially you'll learn new things about what I do under the covers of not public social media. So I started being really passionate about ethical fashion back in 2015, and I was never a social media person. I still laugh at the term influencer, and yeah, my family still take the piss out of me. That is my job, which is actually very helpful, keeps grounded. But I just realized that we're all part of the fashion industry. Why aren't we talking about this stuff? And I'm a communicator. I can't shut up. I haven't stopped. And so I took to social media, and that then turned into doing a lot of running social media and blog spaces for a lot of sustainable brands. Writing for places like The Herald. I'm now News Talk ZB's sustainability expert. I wrote a book. I do a lot of public speaking in corporate spaces or kindergartens, essentially wherever I can go to help people think more sustainably, because I believe life is best when you do that. You don't have to take things away. It actually adds a whole lot more. And I also think people don't do things when you tell them to do something out of guilt. People act and change, and sustained change happens when you make them feel really, really good. So that's kind of my job in this world. A few things that are more relevant today for this particular topic too is my exposure and kind of experience with the corporate world. Because I guess, unlike Brianne, I don't have these lovely, awesome companies that I've driven. I'm a lone ranger, a one woman kind of band, but I get to go into corporate spaces and see what's happening. And I also talk to thousands of everyday New Zealand consumers every single week. So it's really cool to be that person, kind of a fly on the wall in quite a few different spaces. I'm on the board for All Heart NZ. Some of you may know, work with the top 1% of corporates in New Zealand. I've done things like take all the team from Warehouse Group around to the main waste sites in Auckland to show them, this is where your waste goes, so they can adjust what they buy in the craft section and things like that. So yeah, a whole lot. I do love dancing on Instagram, but I do, other little bits and pieces too.
And you said you were going to dance at the end, I think.
Tonight, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I heard you say that too.
Thank you.
Oh dear. So we've had my introduction, then their introduction. So it's hopefully filled in the blanks for a little bit about who they are. But what it has done is given me confidence that they're the right people to be up here on the panel of sorts. Because business is a big place and we all do different things in our business world. But being sustainable is possible, even though it's a bit daunting. And where do I start? How do I do it? Oh my goodness. So this is what we're going to be tackling today. You guys have submitted a lot of really great questions through Slido. I'd never heard of Slido before, but this is Slido, and they're all in an order. But I've also got some other pre-submitted questions on this sheet. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bounce between what's on my sheet and on this wall. And then we're going to go through it that way. And my goal is going to be to get through all of them. But depending on the richness of their answers, we might not be able to do that. So that's the plan for this evening.
Can I introduce about Slido? If you want to contribute a question because you're too scared of speaking, which is totally fine, scan the QR code and you will be able to answer questions. Also, because there's a lot of questions up there, you can vote whether you want something to be heard or not. So if you see a question that you want to ask, just upvote it and it will jump up in priority list.
You can scan or use that little number there.
All that little number there.
$2.
It's an amazing thing. Yeah, exactly. And last bit of very important, the badges, the name badges you're wearing. Kate owns them and she has to hand wash everyone afterwards. They're reuse, reduce, recycle. That's their
They're
vibe.
ice cream container lids.
They're old ice cream container lids. And they're made in Christchurch, is that right? Oh, how wonderful. They've been around for a long time, but they're like boomerangs. They come back. So before you leave here, please leave them behind. That's the agreement.
Otherwise,
we've
I will
got.
jump you as you leave. And don't call my bluff.
And I seem to recall a question from Christchurch NZ like 3 weeks ago to me about name tags. Kate solved the problem.
Remix plastic.
Yeah, local Christchurch business too. It's like synergy. Okay, let's get into it then. We have a little bit of chit chat, one question for you to answer or ask and answer with your neighbor. You mentioned earlier, is it going to be crowd participation? Well, maybe, and maybe that's happening now. The question, you need to take a deep breath and ask this to your neighbor, is, oh, hang on, that's what I'm going to do. What business do you run? Tell a little bit about the business and one sustainability problem you're facing. So say the industry or a little bit about what you do. Keep it brief, but really focus on the sustainability problem. You have 1.5 minutes each, so 3 minutes in total. I am timing. Go.
And if you don't have a business, just talk about your own personal life.
This is where you start summarizing your final point. No. And I'm going to give you 25 seconds. Pretty good. Good crowd. Okay, so this is the part where I now go, hey, crowd participation. Who would like to be bold and brave and share something that they said to their partner with the room? Okay. Are there any volunteers? I want about 3. I want about 3 people, minimum 2. Yes. Let's go microphone.
Kia ora, my name is Julia. I run a business with immersive events, but I also have a problem about packaging. So we have hoodies and caps we sell, but also greeting cards and art prints. And it's really, really difficult to get sustainable packaging. And if you have stuff in retail stores, it's really difficult not to package it. So one of my problems as well is to choose, okay, do I get the more sustainable package, which is across the world, delivered to New Zealand, or do I get something less sustainable in New Zealand without the whole transport? So what is kind of like the better or worse solution?
Give up. I'm joking. And they laughed. Oh, that's good. No, that is not the advice that we're going to hear today. We're going to have tangible solutions. Maybe. Okay. Thank you. And what was your name again? Julia. So I actually have some prizes. So We have did anybody have any delightful baking snacks from over there? Yes, we did. So that was from this lovely organization, Reusable Kitchen. Oh, yeah, Rescued Kitchen. Let me get that right. And I actually learned what they do. So they make sure they rescue food that would otherwise go to waste. Then they use it like fruits and things, and they make amazing baking.
And Diane is over there if you want to pepper her with questions, and
Yes.
she's very awesome.
So I'm just going to give you two whole lots of the baking mixes. Oh, now you've seen the incentivization. So can I see an enthusiastic hand raised for yes? All right, coming all the way over your way.
Hi, I'm Bibi. I just launched a clothing brand, made to order clothing brand this past weekend here in Christchurch. Thanks. And so my biggest challenge at the moment is sourcing fabric that's affordable in smaller quantities, that's certified or checked by a third party. And I have about 7 different people that I source through. And yeah, it's just tricky because some of them are really old school and they don't think that is the thing. And so there's a lot of back and forth on, well, you're not going to find anything better than that doesn't have polyester in it. And and I'm like, well, I'm willing to keep looking. And so that's kind of the challenge at the moment.
Thank you for sharing. Are you a fan of baking or are you a fan of chocolate? Okay. Well, you're going to get 2 jars. Oh, nearly opened in my hand. That would have been a disaster. They're the best, did you say? Oh, you know about these. Oh, okay. No introduction needed. Mind Your Temper is a chocolate, and they just won a prize. Okay, the prize was for the outstanding 2024 Food Producer Award Gold, like the Supreme Award. So this is quality chocolate, and you get 2 jars. Just so when you stay up at night thinking of your issues, you can snack on some chocky. All right, another volunteer, please. We've got at least one. Yeah, come on.
Hi all, my name is Diego. I'm a product designer, engineer, so I have the power to create stuff, which means that I have the issue where if I want to find something sustainable, but it's also like in production quantities, I get a difficult decision as to what materials I can use. So my question is, I mean, I know plastics are bad from a product and packaging perspective. What could I use instead to be, like good like that? Like wood, metal, what?
Go on. Let's go on script.
Yeah. Hi. My name is Sabrina. I work for my husband. He's a brave man to hire me for a marketing person. He's transitioned from plumbing company to water filtration system. And he is a guy sit me down on the day one we were dating, asked me to watch The Inconvenient Truth. So in his heart, as a plumber, he never go to new houses. I say, hey, look at your classmate. They're all millionaires now, make a decent living. Are you still happy doing maintenance rather than going for new houses? And he told me a reason. He says, all the materials they use are not sustainable. Okay, so that's the background. I'm really happy because the challenge we have is that it's really hard to find materials that is sustainable. Mostly are plastic, in pipe. This is massively used no matter which country, which part of the world you are, you need plumbing system. Okay, so I have a question in my heart. I worked for UC before. So I know one of our alumni. Yeah, you graduated from UC. Okay, cool. We had chairs that made by Coca-Cola can. Like, I don't know whether that can be used for plumbing pipelines. So this is a question I leave it to you.
Yeah, well, we got about an hour at the end of this to brush shoulders, share your chocolates. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Chris. I do plastic-free packaging, so would love to talk to you guys. I know. It was. Hi, how are you?
Taking the mic, you get a big stash. Whoa. I know I'm a really nice guy. Just giving stuff away for free. Okay, well, thank you for sharing. And one of the themes is we all have solutions, well, problems that we don't have a solution for yet, right? Doesn't mean we don't take steps towards it. We do our research, we attend seminars like this, but we will all have areas we can improve and solutions we can overcome. That's what unites us. So we'll get to the official questions on my paper and on the sheet. Are you ready, panel? No. Well, we're starting regardless. You stretching? Good. Do you have your hydration? Cool. Question number 1, and I'm going to be jumping between my sheet and here as well. So question number 1, what do you think drives people to choose sustainable products and practices in 2024?
I think way back when like 9 years ago, when sustainability was first kind of on my radar as a topic and a thing, there was far more debate and arguments about the state of our climate and the state of planet Earth. Nowadays, there isn't much. There aren't really the climate crisis deniers out there. Most people, they're around, but in most spheres, most businesses have a sustainability plan. Most news hubs talk about sustainability. Most consumers are going, oh my gosh, okay, I need to step up and I need to think about this. So what was going back to the question?
Why do people consume sustainable?
Because everyone's talking about it. Everyone knows kind of roughly what sustainability is. It kind of, obviously there's still people who are under rocks, kind of not doing much, but people care because they know that they have to care, that they need to care. They're hearing it in their workplace, they're hearing it at their schools, they're hearing it with the most surprising of uncles at dinner tables who are finally agreeing to this mess. That's where I would start.
I would add, there's a whole bunch of people out there who care. There is a bigger group of people who buy things because they think it makes them look better and they don't actually care. And to that, I would say, I don't care that you don't care, but carry on buying the sustainable thing. So,
no matter how they get there.
No, absolutely. If you're going to buy the right thing, or if you're going to not buy the right thing, even better, as in not buy the thing at all. It is worth noting, of course, the vast majority of people will not buy your thing because it is a more sustainable option. It is not a great marketing tool in itself, but it is a great addition to your marketing.
Good to know.
One last thing.
Sure.
I think also there's this movement, or I like to think there is, around aligning your values with your actions more. And I see that in this kind of new wave of people and consumers coming through, that rather than just buying something, because you need it, we're not just buying our basic necessities. We have far beyond our basic necessities. A lot of people do. And so aligning your values with your actions and your purchasing habits is kind of a movement. There's a depth now to our purchasing. So yeah, it's more likely that someone would care about sustainability.
And because I have a mic, I also get to go off script just a little bit, add questions. How trendy is it though? Like you say, it doesn't always drive decision making, but then you also see the amount of times that brands jump on it because it is the thing, and they do a greenwashing version of it, or look at my thing, it's eco, but how cool is that? Cool factor? Talk to me about the cool factor.
Greenwashing is kind of annoying. I think we're all aware of that. But actually, sustainability as a trend is on the down. By and large, you will note lots of companies are writing down their sustainability pledges because in the wake of all that has happened over the last 4 years, money is tight. Sustainability is the first thing to go. Interestingly, greenwashing is actually on the down as well, which is nice because businesses are putting less effort into it. But it also means, this is kind of converse because I've just said it's down, but actually it means that those bigger claims, there are more of them, but they're talking about them less. Does that make any sense? Companies are saying they're doing these amazing, fantastic things. They're absolutely bullshit. But they are marketing it less. You will see that Unilever actually is a great example. In 2019, they did a rebrand of a lot of their products. They made them all sort of sustainable looking. You know, Unilever is the only corporate that isn't a total dumpster fire, in that they are trying to turn a big ship, right? And it is a very hard thing to do. And I think they should have some credit for what they're trying to do. And they've had some great CEOs of late. But they realized how little sustainability is of importance to the buyers and how actually that's going down. So that if you note, a lot of their cleaning products are no longer green cleaned, they're like eco cleaned, which I think is an interesting consideration. It was a trend. Now we need to make it a revolution.
Cool.
Both come up and around in trends too. Like sustainability, there's always with like the green movements, they go like that, from what I've seen and heard and talked about with past, I don't know, grandparents and that type of age. They recognize the different waves when they chat to me. Oh, there must be a,
So the follow-up question, there's some great brands that'll come to you, Phil, maybe. Off script again. The follow-up question would be, okay, we've got some great brands in this room around the country, around the world, who do sustainable things, ethical, sustainable brands. How do they speak to the consumer? What's a way that they can authentically communicate their message without it feeling like greenwashing or without it feeling like, oh, what can they do as a brand?
Actually, really easy. You just don't lie. And if you don't lie and you take people along the whole sustainability journey and you say, hey, we're doing this, we're not doing this very well, but you know what, we're working on it, you get infinitely more trust, infinitely more authenticity, and your customers are always there with you. If you say we're perfect and they find out you're not, you will never get that trust back. So it is actually very easy. You say what's true, back it up with evidence or certifications or whatever, and you also say, but you know what, this isn't great. We don't know how to fix it just yet, but we're working on it.
Absolutely. As a consumer myself, I can imagine the long list of questions I ask a company before I purchase from them or before we're considering working together. And I encourage all consumers to avoid when a company says, we are the most 100% sustainable product and company. We're the best in the world. Absolutely not. I would much rather when a company says, when they come back to me with answers, I have a pretty good BS radar now from asking questions and crafting my questions over years and years, and then assessing the answers. When a company is, they're talking to me, I communicate and can communicate with thousands of people in a second. So you can imagine they're a bit, on the edge when they're answering questions. But when they first off come and they say, hey, we're doing these things really well. We're really terrible at this. This sucks. We're still working on it. That is the best way to communicate sustainability. And that is what I tell everyone to look for is transparency. How can if a company doesn't tell you what they're doing wrong, then they potentially may not be in it. Because every single company that I've ever worked with, that I've ever purchased from, I could list 10 things that I don't like about them that they could do better in sustainability. Every single one. So if they're not forefronting that, that's like a red flag, like pushing.
Agreed. And I will Kate and I don't agree on everything. But I will challenge you on the idea of doing something wrong, not doing something perfectly yet. So a big theme will be progress, not perfection. You've all heard it a million times. It's in the sustainability strategy worksheet, if you like, that you've all got in your email. It's really important when you are having these conversations about how you haven't got to this yet. It's not that you're doing it wrong. It's that you can't do everything at once because you're not super technical.
Go on.
I think also with if we talk about, there's a difference between when we say the word business tonight. Every business is quite different. There's solo businesses of one person who their business is founded out of sustainable values. And then there's Unilever type corporations who are huge, trying to be sustainable. And the way they talk about sustainability is really different, right? But I think, like you said about Unilever, it's really hard for big corporations to talk about sustainability because, like, I remember going to a fashion conference in Sydney, and I was sitting around this table, we were doing workshops, and there was like bonds and farmers there, and they were telling me about all these really awesome sustainability initiatives that they're doing. The big pallets that they shipped into the country were now reusable ones. They weren't just being packed down and thrown away. They were going back to different suppliers. And I thought, as someone who talks and communicates, that's so cool. Where are you telling your story? And they said, absolutely, we can't, because the second we say that, we get a shitstorm of PR back about all the things they aren't doing. So there is a difference between greenwashing and just trying. And I find it really hard when I see people just like bash big brands who are just trying. They can't change overnight. So if we don't support them in those little changes, which those little changes may be even far better, in the greater scheme of things, than erecting 10 small sustainable companies. So, yeah.
It
Can't remember the question
disincentivizes
now, but
it, doesn't it?
And it goes for people too. People out there in the comments who are like, oh, you did this, but you got on a plane the other day. Really? Get a grip. None of you will be doing that in the comments, I know.
Get a grip, people.
there's some trolls.
We're going to now go to this top rated 4 likes question. So if you are working to be a truly sustainable, made in New Zealand business, the cost of product becomes prohibitive for the average Kiwi. So we're thinking purchase price, cost of goods, etc. And we hate that. Any tips?
Just from a consumer point of view, I spend all my time educating customers so they understand that often this may not mean, well, I don't personally think sustainable living costs more, and that's quite a controversial opinion when you see the cost of organic New Zealand grown lemons at the moment compared to the imported ones in the US. But it's not lemon season, so just don't buy lemons just yet. I think sustainable living costs less. And so I spend a lot of my time educating your customers, welcome, on the fact that in general, when you fully embrace a sustainable mindset, and you may pay a little bit more for a sustainable product, the cost per wear or cost per use may be lower than another product. And you're generally saving money in other areas. And I speak from experience and speak from talking to different people who live sustainable lifestyles. It's about changing your whole lifestyle. So you can actually then, people say, oh my gosh, okay, I'd love to live how you live, but I don't have the money. And then we get into a conversation and we actually realize what they meant is not they don't have the money. They just didn't know how to prioritize their money, and they didn't know how to prioritize it in a way that aligned with their values so that they could save money. That's generally, I talk to a certain type of people often, right? That's generally how it goes. So yes, it's really hard, but it's about continuing to educate, and I'll continue to educate people on the fact that actually that cost, for you up front in general may not be what's.
I have lots of controversial thoughts about this question. And one is there is a sense of entitlement for people that you should be able to buy whatever you want at a cost, and it doesn't matter what it does. And that's fast fashion is a perfect example. And if you dare to say publicly, you've had this lots of times, a t-shirt shouldn't cost you $7. I genuinely got a death threat from saying that stuff article. Someone told me to get hit by a bus. It isn't actually an entitlement that we can buy a t-shirt for $7 because the poor person who had to make it, they're not really having a great time. So there's that aspect. We're not entitled to things being cheap when other people are suffering for it. And I know that that then leads a whole swathe of people out, and it's very complicated. And I'm not an economist, but 100% agree. Sustainability is cheaper because you buy less. That is the very definition of sustainability: is you only buy what you need, and that is super easy for me to say because it just is. The other point is your product isn't necessarily for everyone right now. Sustainability does, costs diminish with scale, right? If you are in the early stages of your business and you are making more sustainable choices, they are potentially going to be more expensive. That might change with scale, in which case you'll be able to offer to a more mass audience. There is a reason most early stage startups that have a sustainability angle are more expensive. I'll give you an example. Ethique was $22 a shampoo bar. Everyone used to say, gosh, that's horrifically expensive. But then when you break it down to actually per wash, it's less than Pantene. We'd come back to the conversation that actually it's not more expensive, but that's stick a shot. To begin with, Ethique wasn't for everyone. It was for people who prioritize sustainable decisions. And then it moved into a more mass audience as that understanding grew. And actually, as the bars got cheaper, because they started off, I think, at $25. And we passed that saving on once we got scale. So it is a hard balance. I do appreciate that, but you are making the right decision by paying people a fair wage, because sustainability isn't just about the environment, it's about people. You are making the right decision. You are making the right place. And I promise you, you will find your audience if you're doing the right communications, if you've got the right messaging. I get it, because you feel like you're leaving people out of the conversation. But as a country, we need to become a little bit more productive and hopefully lift everybody up. And then we're getting into the economics, but we need to do that.
So I just wanted to say, my name's Bertie and this is my sister Katie, and that was our question, because we have a small clothing business called 2+Woo, and it was more like, which I didn't include in this question, so I apologise. So thank you for your answer, that was really helpful, but it was to do with also the wholesaleability of our product. So if we have to wholesale it, it really becomes quite prohibitive. So direct to customer we're totally cool with, because we're pricing our product how we feel it's worth. Sorry, everybody can hear me. But yeah, it's just where we've landed is we've paused on trying to find wholesalers so that we can really focus on trying to find ones that really match the values of our business. So the ones wholesaler we have, or the one stockist that we have, is a more curated store of a different set of products rather than just a clothes that stocks lots of clothes, if that makes sense. But yeah, the pricing is just such an ongoing challenge for us, because we make here in Christchurch and paying a living wage for a woman that we've met and become friends with family now. So yeah, it was just the pricing in terms of wholesale is just a nightmare for us. And what we've landed on is to pause that for a bit. And then, yeah, but thank you very much for your answers.
Yeah, the wholesale retail margin conversation's horrific, right? We talked a few of our mentees through it a couple of weeks ago in some group mentoring, and people left, and I think they went home and cried a wee bit, because when you first price your product and you don't think about you need a wholesale, you might need a distributor price if you want to go offshore, shit gets expensive and it's much harder for us, and there is no easy answer. That's why I actually hate this question, because I don't know how to answer it in a way that's genuinely useful to you, other than the fact that as you hopefully get scale, things get cheaper. Your business model, maybe not, actually. But then it comes to who your market is. Because, of course, you are making in New Zealand, right? And that is always going to be a more expensive choice. If you are making an ethically made product in India, where living costs are lower and therefore living wage is lower, it's going to be a lower cost. There are ethical decisions, and ethics, of course, is all about perception. It's complicated. Yeah, that's a real useless answer, isn't it?
It sounds like you're doing what I've heard you talk about doing with Ethique, though. You're pausing, you're holding on to your values, and you're going, this doesn't feel right. I'm not going to alter my brand values, or, go steer somewhere else that doesn't feel good. You're going to stick to that. And that, maybe it really hard, but like, this is why you have a business, because you're holding on to those values and you've determined what you want the business to look like, and you've said no to that for now. And that sounds like what I've heard you say about Ethique is you had opportunities to wholesale in different places and you said no to, because you've held on to your values, and maybe you'll be all over the world like Ethique one day.
So let's circle in on this real tight with that question at the top. Let's hit the bullseye somehow. How do we balance profitability and sustainability when you're a small flippin' business?
We will also solve world peace. Well, we're at it. Yeah.
Nice,
Done.
actually.
Okay.
That's four.
I think we should put women in charge. You probably solve it. Sorry. Right. So you cannot do everything at once. Ethique started with as many sustainability principles as I was concerned about or understood when I founded the company. And as I learned and grew, I added things like the palm oil free, for example, which was the worst fiscal decision a business owner has ever made in the history of time. And my COO got mad at me every day about it in some respects, right? And if we had done that in day one, we would never have been profitable and arguably it never would have left my kitchen. That is not to say you do what you can when you can, because at the end of the day, you must be profitable to be a business. If you're not profitable, you are a charity. And there's nothing wrong with charities, but we are not talking about sustainable charities and we're talking about sustainable businesses, and you must be profitable. And if you want to be truly impactful and create a business that changes the world, you need money to do so. So it is not to say that you diminish your values to become profitable. But if all the values you're trying to cram into your business at the beginning ensure that it's not profitable, then perhaps it's not a business. Real harsh. Some businesses are not businesses. I see a lot of them that would make more sense as non-profits, and there is nothing wrong with that. You have to be both. The balance is very tricky, but it is 100% doable. And if you say, because again, progress, not perfection, if you say, I want to tackle that value because my costs, when I get to say $1 million turnover, my costs are going to be so low, and then I'm going to be able to implement that value, and that's going to be even better. It's probably going to be a damn sight better than the thing they would have bought from a corporate that didn't care in the first place. You must be profitable, or you're not a business, or you must have a path to profitability. I speak to a lot of sustainable businesses, and this is not an insult, who were all about the sustainability and not about the business side of things. I was like that. The only reason the team survived was because I met someone more commercial nous than I had. I didn't care about the money at all. And that does not work. You have to have both. So you can balance them both equally. You do not have to favor one over the other.
I have a spreadsheet of brands that I've ever worked with in my entire existence as a content creator. And a lot of those brands have a line through them because they no longer exist now in business. And I sort of think, why generally, if I've worked with them, I've become great friends with them and I know a lot about them. We probably still chat. And so generally I know the reason why. And the reason why is that they had a huge heart, huge passion. They wanted to look after people in countries where usually there wasn't employment or women just weren't employed. They were wanting to save the world, have ethically made products. They were just so passionate and they forgot that they needed to pay their own rent. That's the common thread from all of them closing down. And so I think people hold on to other people's really dirty money experiences and kind of connotations. In the sustainability world, it almost seems if you're not poor and have no money or funding in your business and you're not working yourself to exhaustion and unwell or hospitalized from burnout, then you don't care enough. And that's a super toxic thing that I see all throughout the sustainability industry, in the corporate spaces, in these sustainability management roles. They're all burning out and leaving these large corporates because they don't have support, because they're told they have to burn themselves out in order to look like they care enough. People working in sustainability aren't working sustainably. And now I've lost my train of thought.
It's a really great point to hit in though.
It was. If you pull back.
No, you go.
An example I use here, right, is I have seen a lot of companies along the same time as Ethique. We grew up together and most of them failed. And that was because they all worked far more towards the other side. And it sounds like I'm telling you to compromise. I am not, because again, Ethique is an example that you can do both, but you must be focused on the profitability. When I started the company, we gave 2% of sales or 20% of profit to charity. everybody, every single person I ever met told me that was dumb because startups don't have any money. And that is true. Startups didn't have any money, but it was a goal I wanted from day one. The other side of the coin was everyone else in the sustainability field was like, oh, but you shouldn't have any profit at all because you're supposed to care about plastic bottles. Well, how the fuck am I supposed to grow? Not supposed to school. You know, there are two trains of thought. The real train is in the middle. You're a business, but you give a. Thank you. Swearing comes horribly naturally. I'm sorry. It's awful. Thank you. Thank you. You're in the middle. That's what I want to say.
I remember what I was going to say. When the money story thing, money is such like a dirty, awkward thing to talk about, even interpersonally. You know, I'm not sure if I've really had proper big money chats with my like best mates. You know, it's this really big thing we don't talk about. We don't want to confess that we have lots of or are struggling with. Like it's so hard to talk about. And when people don't talk about it, you're not generally then managing it well enough, or it's if you don't talk about it, then how do you get anywhere with it? So personally, I mean, I struggle with this a lot because I'm always teaching people about the fact that, you know, just because I care and am ethically paid doesn't mean I'm going to sacrifice my lovely free time, this handsome gentleman, to promote a product or to, you know, do something. I do a lot of volunteering, but it's again educating that kind of martyrdom of just because I care and have values means you shouldn't pay me. No one questions the guy who rocks up to his bank job every day. That's why he should be paid for his job. But they question people in sustainability why they're being paid. It's terrible. When I was looking for a mentor in business, I was thinking, I was very aware of this and how people don't talk about money and how I want to make money so I can give money back. And I was trying to think who in my realm of people that I know, friends and far and wide, who actually has the values, you know, sustainable values as me, but who also is okay to talk about money and is, you know, confident to make it. And Brianne was the only person I could ever, you know, think of in my sphere who held on to those two, like equally. And I've, so it's really, yeah, it's a pretty relationship. Sometimes we just chat like this, to be honest. Tim hears and he said, was that a mental session? But I just think we need to throw people's dirty feelings and ideas of money out the window. And I personally like to think of money as an exchange of energy. That may sound really like a bit woo to some of you, but it is. If I do something in return, and that needs to be money, because unfortunately that's how the world goes round. So if you agree with the way our society is set up, or not, you're in it. So you need money, and that's okay to earn it. Earn it. Shout about it. Be proud about it. Help other people earn it. Circulate it around.
And the people who say that there is no ethical consumption under capitalism are really just looking for an excuse.
Okay. I'm going to go back to my piece of paper now, and I think this dovetails in quite nicely. So who is doing a good job of walking that line of being profitable, still in business, doing ethical and sustainable things? Now that's the background. I'll now read the question specifically. Can you tell us about some cool companies that are nailing it when it comes to talking about sustainability in a way that grabs consumers' attention? So they're doing well, they're sustainable, they're profitable, and then how are they communicating it?
So thank you. Rescued's a pretty good option. Everyone going to have a chat to Diane because she's both commercially minded and also very sustainably and socially minded. Patagonia is actually my example here, and I don't like to use big corporates now as an example. And I know a lot of people think their recent moving all the shares into a trust was a tax evasion move. And look, maybe that has that benefit, but it doesn't matter because the net benefit to the planet was the win. And I don't really care if they had a nefarious reason for it, right? But Patagonia does what I was talking about earlier really beautifully. They talk about what they're doing wrong a lot. They do. They talk about how consumption is the issue. Don't buy this jacket. Probably one of the most famous sustainable adverts in the world. They really did say, don't buy the stuff you don't need. So they're a good example of a company that has unusual routes. If you've read his book, don't ask me to pronounce his name. Anybody know how to pronounce it? Yes, good. It's Let My People Go Surfing is his book. If you want to go and have a read about how he sort of balanced that, it is an interesting read. But beyond that, there's lots of companies in Aotearoa doing amazing things, but a lot of them are still at that very early stage where they haven't hit critical mass or profitability yet. And I'm actually struggling to think of an example here, which is sad. Because I work with a lot of them, and the ones you think are profitable probably aren't. Which the market doesn't help. Everyone rushes offshore. A lot of the advice given in New Zealand's startup ecosystem is utter shit. My business partner over there, Ella, and I get to try and work businesses back from making some of the most horrendous decisions for things like boards and how they've raised equity. And quite a lot of the time, these businesses aren't actually salvageable, which is a real thing. Totally off topic. Allbirds, are they profitable yet? No, they were worth just shy of 2 billion about 2 years ago, and they're currently worth 100 million. They are having a very bad time, which is a shame because I do think they're an interesting case study because they launched the idea that they were the world's most sustainable shoe, right? They got their messaging right. They got the Kiwi quirk. They had a lot of really good PR. And then all of a sudden, I don't want to say that investors were involved, but investors got involved and they started beiging out, right? They started making a lot of different products. They started talking about how sustainability was their key messaging point. And that doesn't sell shoes. I'm not buying shoes because actually I do. But I am a very rare consumer. You don't buy shoes because they're made out of wool. You buy shoes because they're soft and comfortable. And, oh, look, sustainability benefits. So Allbirds are actually an example of people who are getting it wrong now, but they weren't. I noticed someone, I see some pairs of Allbirds, not to point at your feet like a weirdo, but I noticed them earlier. Yeah.
I was thinking about this question because I saw the question before tonight. And I then tried to think of businesses who talk about sustainability positively. So firstly, you're right. We have a lot of small New Zealand businesses doing stuff, which you can find on ethically.com. But secondly, two businesses who I don't know the deep working of how they work. So I'm just going to talk to how I really like how they come across and how they convince their customers to purchase from them and talk about sustainability. One of them is Kelly Woods, again, a small business. And I'm a little bit biased because I know the owner, but ever since the beginning, they're actually one of my main clients who I used to write their blog space for and do their social media. And they sell products and they've employed people. I think there's maybe, 5 people on their team, but they have a blog site where they talk about sustainability, where they educate on different topics. They've really realized that when you're a business, you have a sense of power because you're talking to a whole big group of people who you can influence to do different things. So I like how they aren't just like, buy this reusable cutlery set. Here's our blog space to learn why you would want to buy it. What are some other hacks and things to do? How would you incorporate that cutlery set into your life? Different things like that. So I like when a business has an educational level to sustainability. And I think that really helps with not only the SEO, because you're able to put in all sorts of great keywords in the blogs, but you're also giving back and you're showing you're legit. You're spending time. Kelly Woods is paying me to write blogs. That is not really anything to do with their direct kind of sales. Another one, which I just really like, how I love like positive marketing. And also I love when an action that is sustainable costs people less, is Electric Kiwi, power company. So it's like positive and playful and they're just like save money. And yeah, you can read all about their sustainability reports and all those sorts of things, but they're leading, again, like you said, with Allbird. Well, you're leading with save money, feel really good. On the app, we have ice cream cones and all sorts, and you're doing sustainable. So yeah, I've loved kind of looking through their social media and how they portray this.
Nice. I'm going to wrangle you back over here, and I've got way more questions to get through. So I'm going to get this like 30% shorter. Just no, but it's been great. It's been
You
great, and we flow. But I'm just gonna do the MC thing. So here's a question, and it's a double jointed question, and I want you to focus on the second part mostly. Okay, so the question is, why do you reckon it's so important for businesses to jump on the sustainability train these days? And how does it help them to stick around for the long haul?
Maybe kind of. I feel like we've sort of covered this a little bit, but if you aren't on the sustainability train, in 10 years' time, you won't exist. Because if you've, I'm not going to depress you all, because if you want to be depressed, go and read The Uninhabitable Earth. Or the news. Yeah, but not the Kiwi news, because they don't really report stuff. Yeah. Anyway, if you are not sustainable, if you do not have a sustainability strategy, if you're not taking steps towards being sustainable, you won't exist in 10, maybe 15 years, because shit's going to get a lot worse. Consumers are going to care more, and you want to do it now because you want to take advantage of slightly delayed first mover advantage. It is still a marketing win to have some kind of sustainability policy. It won't be in 5 years' time because it's going to be the bare frickin' minimum. For a lot of consumers, it's the bare frickin' minimum now. Not all consumers. And it won't ever be all consumers because you're never going to get everybody to care. But do it now, even if you start taking one tiny step, and we're going to talk a little bit about the sustainability toolkit you have, and take advantage of the wins you get with it. And that's super cynical and super cold, but at the end of the day, talking about the commercialization aspect of business, you need to have something to market on.
I just one thing, yeah, brilliant answer. It's easy. We still have time. It's easier to establish sustainability habits now than to change them in the future.
We're going to change tack significantly to that top question, but we're going to change tack physically as well. I'm going to get everybody to stand up, take 3 deep breaths, and put your hands over your head and go, wow, that feels good. Yeah. Don't forget the 3 deep breaths. Oh, yeah, life is worth living, people. Okay, now you can take a seat when you're comfortable. Just looking after your well-being, you know. Okay, well, let's get into this one. Change of tack, change of vibe, change of energy. How do you see logistics playing a key part in decarbonisation?
Whew. I'm glad you asked an easy question, whoever that was. Put your hand up so I can throw something at you later. It's a very fair question because transport is roughly 30% of global emissions, give or take. If you look at everything you could class as transport, everyone points at air travel. It's a lot more than just that. However, transport is also not that big a deal for a lot of things, right? So a good example would be food. A lot of people talk about locally grown food being better for the planet. Putting aside all of the local economy sort of aspect, food miles make up less than 10% of the carbon in your food. It is what you eat as opposed to where it's from that actually matters more. That's just as an example. So we do absolutely need to come up with better ways to transport things around, and there are interesting developments with ships. I think, granted, most of it's greenwashing at this stage, but if you have the opportunity to, don't fly your stuff around the world, ship it. Massive decrease in your carbon emissions immediately, and huge in cost. And look, it takes a little bit longer. It just means you have to plan a little bit better, which you just might mean you need to get a more organized person. I'm not a decarbonization specialist, but it's well, what do you mean? Well, it's interesting, this question, because I would argue your consumers using your product is not scope 3, it's scope 4. So when your upstream logistics is totally scope 3, and whenever you are looking at measuring and eventually minimizing and then offsetting whatever you can't minimize, your carbon emissions, they should absolutely be factored in. So all your products, your ingredients, the packaging shipped to you should be considered. And if you sea freight, massive lowering of your emissions. And another good example is actually Incrediballs, right? So you can get fit 100,000 times more drinks in a container if they're Incrediballs, incredible format, i.e. tablets, as opposed to a liquid. What sense does it make? Again, transporting plastic and water around the world. So it's not just logistics, it's also the format of the product. Scope 4 emissions are interesting. So it was, as a climate change conference I flew to, climate change conferences are just ironic themselves, right? The very definition of, and you will be served a plastic bottle of water when you get there every time. The sustainability officer from L'Oreal was talking how they are now looking at scope 4 emissions because they are by far the greatest component of everybody having showers, heating their water. How on earth do you measure that? Right? So that is why nobody in the business world has seriously brought up scope 4, because you cannot possibly consider all possible variations. Is this 30% over?
I don't even know what scope
4, sorry. So scope 4 is everything after you've sold the product, theoretically. I think your scope 3 is getting the product to the person, but everything they do afterwards, theoretically scope 4. Some companies put it in their scope 3. It's real fun. Does it matter? Like he knows what he's talking about.
Okay, we'll catch up after, and significant improvements happening in that space was what I heard. The little flag. KDG, do you have anything to add? Next question. All right, we're going to go here. How do we get my team on board when it comes to sustainability? This is the social. How do we get them included?
Okay.
Hire me to come and speak to them.
And so one of my proudest ever achievements was turning the largest supplier to Amazon, so 150,000 parcels a day, to a more plastic. I don't want to say plastic free because plastic free is actually not necessarily better. Whoever said plastic was bad is not always true. But we turned them into a more plastic free warehouse, right? And we did that. We had a personal relationship with the founders, and we told them why. And that is the way you do anything. You don't lecture people, you don't berate them, you don't make them feel guilt or shame or anything like that. You explain why it matters. You lead with science, you don't lead with the nonsense, everything else. You just lead with why it matters. And gradually, they're like, oh, okay, yep, that makes sense. But it's too hard. And then you show them the way, right? With your team, with your board. It depends on also who you're talking to. With your board, you might want to lead from a more commercialized side. We're not doing it because we want to save the cute fluffy pandas, whatever. We're doing it because actually this will make us money, right? So it depends on who your audience is. But if you explain why, and there's a multitude of whys, then you're golden. I know that I'm making that sound easy, but if you can't convince people, you haven't found the right why.
The why is important.
That was a little mic drop.
That was actually.
Yeah, it was an authentic one.
Totally agree. The why, because otherwise people aren't going to stick to it. You know, they won't do it. But also, I'm going to use an analogy. I use this with individuals, but also it's the same. A team, a group is a group of individuals, right? So if it was fine when you were sitting. Do you know what we're doing?
Was it that thing we did?
So,
that one time?
Yeah, it is.
It is. I thought so.
So if I came up to Tim and I was like, Tim, you need to do the thing, and sustainability is really important.
Stop it.
And oh my gosh, what are you wearing? What are your labels? Oh my gosh, Levi's, didn't you know what they did? They didn't pay their workers during COVID. And if I'm doing this, how likely is Tim to make sustainable changes? He might feel quite intimidated for a little while, and he might feel condemned to then do something. But that feeling is yucky. That's uncomfortable.
And I don't like you, and I don't want to listen to you.
No.
And I'm only going to do something to appease it in the short term.
Exactly.
Which is not sustainable change.
So even though you may not be physically doing that to your team, HR will have something to say about it. It can feel like you're doing that to them when you throw a whole lot of information at them, make them watch terrible, sad documentaries, can feel not good. But if I was like, hey Tim, so the other day, and I talk about a positive experience that happened, I talk about a solution, I talk about hope that's happening, we're far more likely to keep this dialogue open, and it's far more likely to be positive. Especially if I was sitting here and Tim came up to me to have a conversation or talk about something too. So any little bits that your team holds on to, if they'll all have different whys and different motivators. So the second they open up, even just a smidgen of a conversation or a point, that they love, I don't know, surfing or whatever, jump on that bandwagon. Jump where they're coming from, talk about it openly with positivity and solutions, rather than like intimidation and that really yucky feeling, because people will have sustained action and change, and they'll be on board with this when they feel good, because we all want to feel good.
I'm going to add something. Yeah, I finally have something I can add. We've all seen or heard of Simon Sinek Start With Why. That's really emphasizing the point. People are motivated to do something if they understand the why. Yes. But then I've heard very recently that there was a study done way back in the day, and it was about how to get people to allow you to do something or change their behavior or perspective on something, and what language can we use to help with that. And to summarize the whole thing down, if you use the word because, blah, 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 because, blah, 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 it increases up to 96 or 94% likelihood that people will go, oh, okay. So if you're going to make a claim, well, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do it because X, Y, and Z. So lean into that word. I know. The internet. I learn things. All right, next question. Who helped you along the way? E.g. mentors, organizations.
Well, to be honest, I have obviously a very different business to probably a lot of people in this room. Who helped me? The reason I kept going and did things, or practical people helped me, like Brianne, whether she knows it or not, or whether she was my mentor or not. It's cool seeing different business examples, like Ethique grow. But who helped me was every person, the hundreds of people who message every week saying that they're doing stuff and that they care and that they feel good about it. That's what helped me, because, those are all your customers. I'm sure it feels amazing, right? When you get a message about feeling good, that's what keeps you going. And that's what helps continue having that motivation. So I think that is really, again, I have a very different type of business to a kind of product or specific service, but it helps me to know, that other people care.
Nobody helped me from the sustainability standpoint, and it sounds really sad and kind of odd, but everybody thought that what I was doing was stupid from a sustainability standpoint and said it wouldn't work. And I was very bullish and unreasonable, quote, about it, and did it anyway. What they did help me with was the financial commercialization, profitability, money's not bad side of things. And that was, I had a business partner, a former business partner with Ethique. I had my current business partner with Ethique, and now outside, and one of them's there. And you find people, and I think the best business mentors and advisors are the ones you kind of find organically, which is very unhelpful. So if you want to approach, but also the wonderful thing about living here is that people want to help you. So if you find someone that shares some kind of values, or whether you're inside your industry or outside, best thing to do is flip them a message and say, hey, I'm interested in jumping on the same value as you did. I want to help you do this. Find something that they are trying to do, because they're then that much more likely to want to help you. You've got to help them do what it is they're trying to do, because speaking from experience, you just get hundreds of requests for mentoring all the time. And if you approach it from that standpoint, you're helping them do what it is they want to do as well. And just, I've said this a few times now, but just be really careful about the advice you take. You don't have to take anything that doesn't resonate with you. And if it feels wrong, go and get a second opinion. And a good mentor will not care.
I like that. I wish these flowed in an organic way, but we're just chopping and changing all over the show. So when a business decides it's time to get serious about sustainability, what are the first steps it should take?
Oh, this is so good because this is when you're going to open up your sustainability toolkit that I created for you this morning because I didn't leave until the last minute. And it is a step-by-step how to create yourself a sustainability strategy. And I'm not saying that you need a strategy for everything, but if you are truly out there in the wilderness, you're one of the 83% of businesses who want to start making steps towards being more sustainable and have no idea how to start with that document. It's like a plan on a page. It's on a few pages, and it lists out how to decide what you do and when. Or go and listen to a podcast I did a couple of weeks ago called 10 Easy Steps to Becoming More Sustainable. It starts really easy. But the first thing you could do is go and outfit your office with more fair trade products, right? Every little tiny thing you do like that might seemingly seem small. And some of them are smaller, but each one gives you the confidence to go and do the next one. So I'm not going to tell you what it is you should go and do because all of your businesses are different. But what you should do after this is maybe not tonight, is go home, go to work, and read through your sustainability toolkit, put together a strategy, and then send it to the Inspire team because we're going to give you personal feedback on it. Please do that because we want to make sure you take something away from this.
Good. I mean, that whole thing is. What's the next question?
No notes. No notes. All right. Well, we got two kind of questions. Well, they're not questions, they're statements. And I think it's just nice to just have our pain points heard. So maybe there's nothing to comment on it. Maybe there is. But the first one is
Can I interject? There was a question before that said, what are the top 3 things you should do? And I know I just said I wasn't going to do this, but I do think the single greatest thing that businesses could do if they really want to make a big splash is sort out your supply chain. If we made it so that people who bought things paid a fair price for them, imagine the change you would see in the world. If everything you bought was by definition fair trade, because if you think about it, right, the 0.3% of things, 0.3% of things that are in supermarkets are fair trade. So by definition, everything else isn't. Imagine the difference you would make in the world if you just paid a fair price for the stuff you were buying. Appreciate that has a affordability discussion. That's number one. Sorry, I know she deleted the question and I just wanted to answer it. Toolkit. Honestly, I can't answer the question without knowing your business. That's where we want to do the other one, of course, is carbon minimization, right? But that's also a big question. Go and have a look at the toolkit. It will help. Yeah. Is it 9 pages? Most of it's, yeah.
9 pages of quality, life-changing. No, it's not homework. Homework is fun. Okay, so I'm surprised, Kate, you didn't mention anything about composting.
That's because we're talking about businesses.
Yeah,
not
but we all
individuals.
consume things, and shouldn't things be composted?
You get a lecture. Just
I'm
say
surprised.
it. Just say it.
That's from packaging to product.
Totally, but it is different because again, different depending on the business. But what Tim is referring to is I often talk to individuals, and generally, if you're talking about waste, again, it'll be different. With all your different supply chains, around 50% of what's in our rubbish bins is organic matter, and potentially composting, even if you already have an existing workspace, is a good one because not only are you halving your waste, if you're talking about an individual's waste produced, but composting is addictive and it teaches us circularity. And so I think composting, there's so much to learn from it, to then take all those values and the wow factor and turning something, keeping those resources around and just the surprises that happen and all the unknown things in your compost. All of that is just a great analogy that we can take into every other spiders, bugs. Honestly, compost is just such a fun time. And so when you start composting, you see people have like light bulb moments and they feel good. And I just think, yeah, I guess I would hope that all business owners would compost. So then when they're having those moments, they're learning and actually appreciating and taking those lessons into every other part of their business.
I'm going to interject again because composting and food waste or reducing your food waste is the single most important thing you can do as an individual to mitigate further climate change. The single most important. I don't care about recycling. Stop wasting food. Go and talk to Dane.
Can I just add to that? Sorry, I do run a food waste reduction organisation. I just really have to add that the reduction of food waste can really be focused upstream. So your behaviours on not overbuying or overproducing if you're a business, or overgrowing if you're a grower. I doubt we have growers in the room, but every single part of the supply chain oversupplies, overproduces, overstocks retail shelves, and we overbuy as consumers or eaters. So composting is amazing, but really it's the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff. And so when we're talking about reducing food waste as the number one thing you can do to slow down climate change, look at your behaviours at the start. Would just be my point. I'm really sorry.
No, it's brilliant.
What about you?
You have a lot of food to eat and take home with you tonight.
Good
And you
point.
have to eat it all. All of it.
Diane can turn it into something else. Sorry, Diane.
Really silly question, but composting versus the green bin? Because I don't really have a lot of use for compost, so I put it in the
Yeah.
green bin, but I'm like, should I feel bad about that? Is it actually going to the right place?
50%. So I actually learnt this on Thursday because it's composting week this week. And I held an event with the composting club at UC in collaboration. And someone asked that because the green bins, they're everywhere all over the country now too. So I didn't know specifically about Christchurch until I learnt this that night. 50% of it is composted, 50% is not. Because they didn't say specifically, but I think it's to do with capacity. Yeah, like usual. So, and in general, regardless of it is or not, composting locally and individually is generally far better on all different community resilience, all types of things. So share waste, have you heard of share waste? So if you don't want the compost, as a composter, that's like valuable, right? Like I would give you a bottle of wine for your food scraps. But share waste connects people who have organic matter that they can no longer eat, and connects people who have a compost. So like our compost bin, we're currently nomadic, but when we were living there, had 2 other families would come and drop off their compost there. So if you're in, an apartment space, you don't want it, you don't have a need for the soil, then share waste connects it. So you have heaps of share waste spots in Christchurch. I know you do. So if you do have a compost and you can take people's compost, Sarah here has compost to take, then you can sign up to it. And then if you need to drop it somewhere, you can do that. But there's also so many different community groups who rely on people's compost to make their community gardens. And what we've seen in Auckland, where it's actually not even composted there, it's transported down to Taupo, and a whole lot of things happen to it that I don't love. All of these community gardens now don't have soil because everyone's going, oh, this is lovely to just put it in a bin at the end of my street. I won't take it to the lovely community garden where I have a lovely kōrero on a Sunday morning when I drop it off. When I foster a relationship, when I see where food grows, we're missing out on all that stuff and we just put it in a bin and, forget about it. Yeah, I'm quite much about composting.
And that's why I brought it up. It was the elephant in the room. The week it should be spoken about. Okay, I'm just going to read out this pain point because it's been upvoted 3 times. Pain point. Large corporate customers not genuinely valuing our efforts, or as individuals or small businesses.
Is the person in the room? Hooray! Can you give us some context?
Recently, KiwiBank seemed to do a lot of advertising around their sustainability, but they genuinely don't actually have a framework on a procurement side. I was able to see the context of a large tender that they appointed, and sustainability, they didn't even acknowledge how to actually integrate it into their procurement decisions. So it's like they're putting TV ads up saying one thing, but not doing another. So
Just have a chat with Steve.
Sorry?
Just have a chat with Steve. That's interesting. Okay. See, I fell for the greenwashing. Literally, green bank. I had a really great point. So can you do some filler? Just like some beatboxing, what I think what that was.
He's a
Oh,
dance.
now I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Oh, shit. I actually don't think what my point was.
It's all right. Just let it go. It's like a river. What the fly? Oh, it was just we were.
Oh. This might seem a little glib, but I'm actually being quite honest. if you really wanted to push the point, particularly with someone like Bank, I'm not suggesting that you do or they don't, you could take it public. Why not? How on earth else do you get these people to change and pay attention to you? Corporates don't care that you throw little stones at them, right? If you want to really make change, if it's bold enough, take it public. Again, I'm not saying to go into a bank at all. As someone who has been unkind to a bank, it achieved nothing. And it stressed me right out. But you good to have a better result. But again, I go back to the exact same thing I was telling you before. Bank are already on board with the sustainability message. It's probably something they simply haven't got to yet. We're probably being a little unfair with the whole saying the greenwashing, but probably simply haven't got there yet. So again, why this matters. Supply chain being the single greatest thing that you could change as a business to change the world. That's how I would approach it.
Well, we've got 5 minutes left of Q&A, and I've got 3 questions on this sheet I'm going to ask you first, okay? But we're going to rattle through, and then we're going to try to get to some of these, okay? So straight to the bones. Okay, measuring progress sounds tricky. Any tips on how a business can keep track and how they're doing without getting lost in the numbers?
Sustainability is toolkit.
The toolkit?
It will tell you how to do that.
Good one. Good fast one. Innovation is a buzzword, but how can a regular business get innovative when it comes to sustainability?
What I see so much of is people looking at our current systems, our current demand of what society thinks they need and how much they need of it, and wanting to swap that with a sustainable version. And that's not innovative. Is that how you say it? Innovative.
I went with innovative, but that was actually a mistake at the beginning.
Quite nice to say. But it's it's not changing how we're doing stuff. We're talking about overconsumption of things, Caitlin. Like we consume 100 billion garments a year as a globe. And I think one of the reasons why people tell me, oh, I'd love to live how you live sustainably, but I can't afford it, is because they think they swap out what they currently purchase with sustainably made stuff, which absolutely would be just an astronomical cost. So if you want to be innovative as a company, you need to actually deconstruct what you already think exists and really get creative and get so out of the box wild with your thoughts and ideas. Because out of the bottle. Because it's generally if you're just swapping out a product with a sustainable one, I don't know, it doesn't seem to be very helpful or actually sustainable.
Look at Mars paper wrappers, way worse decision. If you look at the bamboo containers people fill their pantry with, way worse. Wooden forks, way worse than plastic forks. I know, no one agrees with me. Single-use glass is way worse than single-use plastic.
If we're focusing all of our energy on swapping out these items with sustainable ones, I would much rather use the plastic. We'll just keep using what we're using whilst we're all using that stuff to create something better for the future. Because we're just putting these stop gaps in and feel really good about ourselves. And it's just besides the point.
Cool. Good. So I'm going to do 2 more. I'm going to do the top one of there and I'm going to go back to my paper. So a pain point for us is accessibility to sustainable materials. Damn it.
Is the person in the room? Your question? No, I don't need context then. Okay, so I might need a little bit of context. You were talking packaging, right?
Yeah, it's mainly packaging for art prints and greeting cards for retail shops, but also packaging for hoodies, which so far I don't package at all. Yeah.
So first question, if you don't package them now, why would you need to in the future?
If I want to grow, it's really difficult. I'm massively, right now, everything is in one room of our house in really airtight, plastic boxes. Mm-hmm. But it's not sustainable for a growing future. If that makes sense.
Yeah. There is no sustainable way of doing what it is you want to do. single-use packaging by definition will never be sustainable in paper, and your situation will be worse than plastic. So if you truly wanted to look at the life cycle analysis of the best packaging option, it would be plastic. I can tell you without any considerations, all of the variables aside, paper is never better. And I appreciate everyone's going, oh, but it ends up in the ocean and it chokes turtles. Yes, the way we currently handle the end of life of plastic is abominable, and we should be taxing companies who produce virgin plastic to pay for it all. But there is no good solution to the question you're asking, and sometimes that is the answer. So you have to find the one that is the best one that aligns with your values and your ethics. Sometimes you're an ocean-focused organization that can't see you packaging in plastic. The other consideration, of course, is that consumers are like, why the hell are you packaging in this in plastic? So are you better with paper? But are you not better doing what Kate just said and saying no? So the example Kate brought up a little bit earlier ago about retail. So just very quickly, we turned down about a $4 or $5 million deal for our first retailer in the USA when I was at Ethique, because they wanted us to package everything in poly bags, plastic bags, because of leakage. And when I pointed out to them, shampoo bars don't bloody leak, they didn't care. That was their policy, and we didn't work with them because of it. I appreciate, as it stands right now, it isn't an option to not package them. Could you change it? That's how I would be looking at it. Otherwise, you just do the best you can until something better comes along.
Nice. Last question. I'm going to stick on time. By a little bit, but that's okay. They didn't need to know that. Okay. For businesses just dipping their toes into sustainability, into the pool just of sustainability, what's your best advice to help them dive in with confidence? Sustainability talk. We're hearing a lot about that.
Already done the work.
In all seriousness, that was what today is about, right? And that's why I wanted to create this worksheet for you, because you're not going to get all the answers, everything you need to today. We've covered a lot of things very, very lightly. But that toolkit will walk you through what you need to cover for your business. And then personalized feedback, you can't beat it, because we're product business specialists for sure, but if you have a service business, you'll still be able to help. So please do it, and please send it through, because I want this to have a lasting impact in the long term. And please share it with people. It does say copyright at the bottom. Please share it.
One little answer, which I feel like we haven't talked enough about this theme, that could have been an answer throughout a lot of these questions, is the power of working together. Even from your question earlier, is it Debbie, about fabrics? We can't, minimum orders here in New Zealand just are huge compared to what small businesses need. So you're nodding there too with your brand. So the power, and same with the innovation question, all of it. We're all sitting here with our own individual businesses, potentially, or you work for another business, or you have an idea. We're all sitting here on our own wanting to do something, and we're not using the resources and the power of community. We're only going to get through all of these issues in the world when we work together. That sounds so cheesy, last minute kind of note to end. We can sing Kumbaya whilst we drink the leftover wine. But I just think, again, it goes back to, like, we're in this individualistic kind of thinking framework, and we think, I've got to really hustle as a business owner to do this myself and solve this, and I'm gonna do this business, and this is what I'm passionate about. What if we actually put some of those ego kind of things aside and actually ask for help and ask questions to our biggest competitors? What if we actually thought, this is really hard. Growing my business, I might need to use plastic. What if instead of growing my business, I grew it in a different way that didn't mean I was, pushing out more products, but I was accumulating with some other brands and different, let's get creative about how we're actually doing it, not just about what we're doing. And that's really challenging. It's really challenging in our society. We want to hold on to our individual businesses and, be that person. But if we all broke down those walls a bit, I think going back to the question, what's the first thing to do is just talk to other people, find community, find people who want to do this with you. Because you're actually not going to be able to do it by yourself. You're incredible, all of you, potentially. I don't know all of you, so I won't make that blanket judgment.
Most of you.
I'm sure I'm sure most of you are incredible, but you will not be able to do it all if you just stick to your one ideology and framework. There's probably a lot of different ideas in here that could actually help you with your pain points, which you better network later on.
Like Adidas and Allbirds. Quite literally massive competitors, and they made a shoe together.
I was given a look from the side that we're actually going to ask the third question. So, don't know why, but we are. Some companies doesn't say anything about sustainability. How should we respond to this? Like, real quick, last one.
Say part of the office. You just ask them. You have a list of questions that you should ask people, right?
You can go on my website. There is a little pop-up of questions that you can ask the company. And again, look for the vulnerable answers, not the right ones.
Well, that does bring us to the end of the Q&A section of this. And before I say a big thank you, Brianne, can you please fill in any of the blank to do with the strategy sheet or the sustainability strategy?
I'm not sure there. I don't know if there's any blanks, but please, I can't talk. God, sorry. Please come and see me afterwards if you have any questions about it. But it's been emailed to you through Humanitics. If you don't have it, please just email us. It's hello@inspire.com. It's like inspire, but spelt wrong. Just ask us for it if you haven't got it. But take your time to fill it out the next few days while this is still fresh in your mind. Send it to us and we will come back to you. It'll take probably 4 to 5 days for us to come back to you, and we can have a chat about it. And this isn't like one of those weird discovery sales calls. It really isn't. We just want to see what you come up with and see if we can help.
Awesome. And do it while it's fresh in your mind. Strike while the enthusiasm is hot. Do yourself a favor in that respect. From me to you, not a tip. I'm going to say thank you to Inspire, the one of the sponsors this evening, and the other sponsor is Christchurch NZ. And it's so good that a council organisation is putting its focus on sustainable solutions in the business realm. That just feels right to me. So let's actually give the sponsors a round of applause for tonight. And while we're clapping, the team on the audio, the cameras, the setup crew. Thanks, team, to make this whole evening work really well. Thank you very much. And we are going to go fill our tummies in a second over to the side, but we already mentioned Rescued Kitchen, which we had some prizes and some good delicious snacks. But there's also another caterer that we're about to have right now, which is Greater Goods. So we're about to go have some of their deliciousness over the side there. And again, lastly, I'd say, really lastly, to you guys, thanks for coming, thanks for spending your evening, and truly lastly, these two. Thank you very much. You've now got just under an hour to socialise, to network, to have some food, chat with some people, share the podcast, and and leave your badges behind. Leave your badges behind.
Yeah, so